Hi guys, good evening. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining in for today Sunday's live show on medical devices. I can see few people here on Zoom and as well as on my YouTube channel, The Bright Orbit. Welcome everyone. Good evening, guys. I can see some of the frequent names who are there on the Sunday live show every time, and some of the people I can see who are new here. So please type in the chat window your name, your city, and your company so that we know who all are there on the Zoom as well as YouTube live. Welcome everyone once again, and as all of you know, this Sunday live show on the Bright Orbit is all about medical device sales. So we talk about various aspects of medical devices, various specialties, various segments. What are the skill set which are required to get into medical devices and how you can be successful in this industry. So we started this endeavor about 2.5 months back, and every week since then we have been coming live and interacting with all of you on this Sunday live show. And now recently, initially I had been doing it all by myself, and now as most of you know that we every week we have an industry veteran or expert, and he is coming and talking to you on one aspect of medical device sales. If you are new here for the first time, just type in FT. FT stands for the first time. So I know who all are there for the first time. I can see few names. Amit is there on YouTube. Rinku, Amit, Rinku, all both of you are welcome. And guys, I can see few more people who are there on YouTube live. Just keep introducing yourself. Yeah, I can see FT. Just type in FT so that I know who all are there here for the first time. And people who are here for the first time, after this session you can go to my YouTube channel, The Bright Orbit, and you can access the recording of all the previous sessions, so that there are some wonderful insights and experiences which people have shared. So you should go and watch all the recorded sessions previously as well. So now talking about today, so today's show is very special because we have with us one of the veteran and a kind of an industry expert in medical devices, and he is none other than Mr. Lakshmi Narasimhan CP. So it's my pleasure. First of all, thank you so much, Mr. Lakshmi, for being here on this show, uh, and I thank you very much. Uh, I thank you very much for accepting my invite to be here on this show. And now let me introduce you briefly, Mr. Lakshmi Narasimhan. He is popularly known as CPL, and he has an industry experience of close to 33, 34 years. He has done his BSc in chemistry, and then he joined pharmaceutical industry as a sales rep in 1987. That was about 33 and a half years ago. And he has a rich experience of both pharmaceutical and medical device industry. So as I told you, he started his career in pharmaceutical sales as a sales rep in GSK way back in 1987. Yeah, yeah, nursing is saying that's my age. Great nursing. Let me briefly talk about his credentials. So he has spent close to 11 years in pharmaceutical sales in GSK, and then he got into surgical segment of it and joined Vishal Surgical Equipment Company for and worked there for about a year. And then he got into J&J, and I think he has worked there for more than 20 years. So he spent major amount of his career in medical devices, and started as a sales rep as well in J&J in medical devices, and then he got promoted, and he held various leadership positions as well as in J&J, starting from the sales rep to the area manager and going forward, managing a bigger team and managing not only sales, but he had brief experience of field marketing. And top of that, he was a national training manager in last 12, 13 years, initially starting with the training assignment in Cordis, which is an intervention cardiology arm of J&J at that point in time. And for last 10 years, he has been associated with the as a national sales training manager in J&J Ethicon Surgical Division. And recently, he has started his own venture as a in consultancy, like a skill and will consultancy. So he's not only training he has been with the corporate training, but he is now in his own venture. He is kind of imparting skills and training various training needs of various corporates, big corporate giants in the field of medical devices and pharmaceutical. So without any further ado, once again welcome you, Mr. CPL, Mr. Lakshmi, and thank you so much for being here on this show. And now I have talked briefly about your career journey. I think people would be interested to learn more about you now from your own mouth. And please share your career journey with us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Pankaj. Am I audible now
Yeah.
clearly?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
great. So thanks, Pankaj, for that kind introduction. Thank you very much. And welcome all of you guys. Yeah, somebody said that's my age. That makes me really a veteran, but though I wouldn't consider that much as a, definitely young at heart, and because that's what is needed, as you know, you're being anyway, you are any time, any side type of association of you have on sales, whether it is active sales on the field, put on the ground, or sales training, the younger you remain at the heart, the more successful you would be in either way. So yes, that was a nice one actually. I like that. Okay, thanks very much for the introduction. Going ahead, okay. I started off way back in 1987 as a medical sales rep in a company called Burroughs Welcome, which many of you might have, yeah, I haven't heard also. And that was a research-oriented company which came out with a lot of products which were, it was basically from UK. And I joined in a place called as Trichy in South Tamil Nadu. My first years I worked for that company, and towards the end of the maybe 2 years before I left the company was taken over by GSK, and it became Glaxo Welcome, and then afterwards it became and then I moved on to medical devices industry, starting off with a company called as Vishal Surgical Equipments, which was based in Madras, and it was at that point of time they didn't many of the major devices companies, either it is international or others also, were not having direct presence in the country those days. 2 decades and a half, they were just about coming in. Mostly it was through distributors. And I joined there, and then a couple of years I was there. I come to that why and etc. Just touching upon my brief, because those questions would come. I would part of years. So I moved from a Burroughs Welcome company, which became GSK, to a surgical distribution company called Research Surgical Equipments. And then it was 2 years wherein I actually picked up the medical devices, sales and the whole lot about medical device sales, especially with respect to interventional cardiology in general, also because they were distributing a lot of other products. But the beauty about that company was, it never was seen, or it never functioned as a distribution company alone. It was like, a big company wherein you would actually see the way they were working was very professional in terms of. So my hands-on medical device understanding industry came from that company, thanks to the ownership, the way they functioned as it's the owner as well as all the staff. And then on, during those 2 years, I towards the end of the 2 years, around 1998 and 1999, I joined Johnson and Johnson, and that was purely because of my experience in this company. Because somebody noticed me working around with and they thought, why not take him? I went back to the owner of the company and I told him, and that's the good thing about when you have good mentors and those who look in, you ahead. And because I wanted to tell him that I'm going to leave because I'm going to join a principal company, Johnson and Johnson, the owner said, I'm very happy for you. Please go. Because, typically what you think of a distributor company, big device companies, is getting sales, giving some extra, perk or position and then hold. But he was such a nice person. His name is Ramesh Ahuja. And he just let me go. And then I joined Cordis, and then, had a real wonderful career, both sales, marketing, as you were telling, and further on, and becoming the national sales training manager. and sales training all gave me that, and especially, definitely, I would say my pharma, though it was not planned at that point of time when I moved, my pharma company experience came very good handy. I will elaborate on that later in terms of. So that's about my whole, journey or sort of career as of now before I start out on my own as such.
Right. Thank you so much for talking
Big
about your
mentors
career.
work in my pharmaceutical industry. Yeah, go ahead, Pankaj. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I think I interrupted you. You can carry on, please.
No, no. So I was just talking about my first job, which was in the Burroughs Welcome, that actually gave a good foundation for me in professional value and the work culture, which I carried on throughout. My first manager was just not a manager. Even in those days, his name is Sundarajan. He's retired, having good retired life in down south in Trichy. But he was a guy who was way ahead of his times in being a leader in grooming way back. And I was lucky to have such a manager, very first company which I joined. And then of course the person whom I told you, and then definitely of course in J&J, couple more, the managers which I had were all leaders. So it actually helped me other in addition to my own what I wanted to do as such. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. That's great to hear about your career journey. I think it's been like more than 3 decades of career journey, and you have captured it pretty well in few minutes. And I think that's pretty difficult to do. But we will delve deeper into your career journey of last 3 decades. So coming back to medical devices, since this show is all about medical devices, and a lot of people are interested to know about how it is medical devices. So we would like to learn from your like last 2 decades of experience of medical devices. What were some of the challenges which you faced? What were some of the important learnings? And what do you think, according to you, because you have been in the training as well, training a lot of sales reps, managers, country leaders as well. So what are the some of the important factors for success according to you? So we would like to know about your challenges, learnings, and obviously the factors for success according to you from your own experience.
Yeah, good. Thanks. A long question with two, three subparts. I'll address one by one as such.
Sure.
But yes, it actually, I think most of at the ballpark, maybe 90% of the audience in both channels should be from pharma, maybe close, maybe more than 90%. You would have a better
Yeah.
idea, Pankaj.
Yeah, close to 70% is from pharma and about 30% from medical devices.
Okay, so 70%. So I'll go with first that part, and then maybe then go with medical device specifically who are there. So those who are from pharma, my this thing was not planned when it happened, but in hindsight, it was good that happened. When it happened, like for example, let me be very candid. After 10 years in my initial career of pharma, like everybody else, I was looking for a team manager role, right? It happens. So I'm coming to the brass tacks in terms of what happens. At some point of time, by around seven years in a company, you start, you have all the performance, you have hit your numbers, budgets, you are good in your sales skills, and you are also good in your products and what you do, expanding market, all those things. Then you would like to have become a team leader. But what happens at times, and it doesn't happen. Or it was the same with me also in Burroughs Welcome, and that's the time move on, and which I'm going to address because that shouldn't be the way because here in sharing of experiences, right? So of course at that time when I left also I was a bachelor, so it was like it was not a calculated risk. I would say a careless risk, or maybe you can say things turned out. In my training sessions, I say things turned out good for me when I moved, just dropped, resigned, and moved on to devices. But that's not the way to do it, right? In hindsight, everything looks fine, but then you need to have calculated, planned move. But what happened was then I left. I joined this company, Vishal Surgical Equipment, which was open, and then The beauty about the medical device industry is, let me go back a bit. What you learn from pharma is a lot of good things. Okay. You learn discipline, number one. And you learn all basics of selling if you have put your mind to it and if you had a good mentor, everything as a package. And also your key learning, because that's one thing which is going to be always remain, whether whichever industry, your learning instincts and your attitude to learn. All this, and the process of sales which comes in pharma training is very good in terms of it is just not about going throwing the baby into the water and learning it to swim. It's okay to say, but that's not the way in healthcare because it's patients' lives and all that, right? So you need to have some structure to it. Of course, you go and out learn, but definitely, but that structuring of learning, whether it is product and or sales, you get it in pharma. Definitely yes. And then you have to build on it depending on what you want to do. So when I entered Visual Surgical Equipments, I had these qualities from pharma, and then came about learning on the job because those days there was nothing like devices training schedule, etc. Nothing. So the challenge for me was when I went first by because they had the brand also because they were distributing, they knew everything about. So I could get in OT or a cath lab. Everything was like Greek and Latin because all you know is a visual aid, a doctor, and a chemist, a wholesaler. Most of you will relate here over here, and you have been doing what you do in a good way. But then you are suddenly put into a situation wherein you just get in and you are absolutely clueless to the whole atmosphere, right? But that's when you start thinking, okay, I've gotten now, I need to learn. The challenge part was it was too overwhelming. But the good thing about was here is an opportunity. I can say quit and go back and do what I wouldn't have been liking to do as again a frontline rep, which I definitely didn't want to after 10 years with the same with other issues around, not moving ahead. Other say or okay, I've gotten now I need to learn. And how do I find people who can make me learn better, right? One was from the company itself inside Vishal, but very importantly was all of you guys need to remember this. It may not happen that much in pharma, but in medical device, in every specialty, there will be one customer, what more than one customer, couple of customers who are willing to teach you, who if you are willing to learn. It could be a surgeon, it could be an interventional cardiologist, it could be a technician, an OT chief nurse, staff. They are all there to empower or teach you if you are willing to learn because it is that. And why? Because it helps them. One of a very leading customers used to say, help us to help you. So that used to be his catchword when whatever his stocks were not available or whatever, things like that. So what I'm saying is the advantages of medical device industry is you get very close to action on the job. In pharma, right? You do a good job. You really are good at convinced and you convince the customer based of your product, how it acts, etc. Ultimately, what happens is you are not in the thick of action. Maybe it's a prescription and it goes and the patient takes it. Very few, maybe in very few segments of pharma where the rep is directly in touch with what the action happening, maybe by the bedside of the patient or at the patient's house. Because it's the way it is. The only factor is that the doctors or the other stakeholders, every stakeholder says, your product is damn good, it's working, and I will continue to use it. It's changed my patient's life. That's about it, right? But you don't see it. In medical devices, you actually see in front of your eyes. It's more because it's hands-on more. And that gives definitely a higher level of satisfaction, a job satisfaction. I have had some of the more than some many of the instances where the surgeon or the doctor says, so he is the person who was responsible for you getting all right, okay? Because that and that really lifts you up, right? Ultimately, if you are in that part of a value add where your customers are feeling, definitely what you do is, so that part is definitely a very good thing about it. But the challenges are definitely huge, because one needs a complete mindset shift from things like, uh, I would say it's more result oriented, qualitative, than activity oriented and quantitative, which is there in pharma, right? So in the sense, um, everywhere quality plays, but maybe in a average in a pharma industry, you might be okay if you make an X number of calls, X number of chemist visits, X number of orders, and then project it out. You are able to get your, in the medical device industry, it doesn't work like that. It's all about quality, output, and so that difference, because it's more sophisticated, I would say, from a what to say, whole operation point of view. And the other challenge is about you, whichever medical device segment you enter, you didn't, obviously the surgeon would not expect you to be his equal, definitely not, but definitely he or she would expect you to be way above than their best pharma reps they are meeting. They may have a list of pharma reps who are right up there, right? An average medical device rep needs to be at least couple of notch more than the top pharma rep. That's why, because their expectations are completely different. Why? Because it's all action oriented in terms of, it could be a device, how to use it. Because many of the times during the cases, they expect you to tell them how to use the device, if there is some issues, how to address the issues, etc. So it's more a collaboration with the surgeon, at least for quite some time, until they are very sure about how the product is in at least definite specialty segments. So challenges, yes. Uh, I told you about the success factors. Anything else you want to add to this or ask on this? Uh,
No, I think you pretty well summed it up. I also remember my initial days when I got from pharma to devices. I also faced these kind of challenges, and obviously, one has to adapt when we are shifting from a different industry into medtech industry. So I also got to know probably from a quantitative or a more from a process oriented behavior of sales rep. We had to move into more of result oriented. So here nobody is going to ask you how many calls did you make, okay, but which customer are you meeting, what the discussion happened. But ultimately it's about the result which anyone and everyone can see. And you have to work in very much close collaboration with your customer. And obviously the knowledge part which you mentioned has to be top notch, at least a couple of notch better, as you said, than the pharma sales, which when we are in pharma sales. So you have to be very much thorough with your product knowledge. And in addition to that, I would say the procedures which you are going to support in whatever company, whatever segments you are there. So whatever procedures you are supporting, in addition to the product knowledge, I think you should be thorough with the procedural part as well, so that you can assist in whenever there is a complication, whenever the customer is asking for your own opinion. So you become more like not only a salesman when you are standing in the lab or in the operation theater, you are more like a value consultant, and he values your opinion as much as he values the opinion of his colleagues and the technicians. So that is pretty much it about the kind of my experience, little bit of my experience of last 7 8 years in medtech industry. So moving forward, I think the today's topic is especially about surgical devices. So we would like, I think the audience would like to understand this overview of the surgical device industries, what this surgical device industry is all about, because people know about cardiology here and there, they keep interacting, but surgical is one space probably we do not get to interact with a lot of surgical sales reps or people who are working in this industry. So would be great if you can tell us about overview of the surgical device industry. What are the various procedures which are happening in this surgical device segment? What are the various products which are being used in various segments? So that would be great for us.
So, so typically, if you take surgery broadly, totally, uh, is open surgery, which happens all the time, uh, and some of the surgeries needs to be done only open, and there is minimally invasive surgery, which is growing very fast because of the advantage, the inherent advantages, which will come in a minute. And then now going ahead, there is the next step of minimal invasive, even much less minimal invasive, is robotics, etc. So these are broadly the surgery types as such. And if you take the procedures, pretty much all surgical procedures which can be done open may be done by minimally invasive, okay, nowadays. And whichever the segment or whichever the part of the body, which again we will come to, but I'm just starting from the broad aspect. And so much so in robotics, but there's some subsets which are very specific advantages with respect to robotics. So that's sort of the big classification. And if you take types of surgeries, you will have general surgeries. A general surgeon or a general surgery would be most of the common procedures which are done by surgeons across everywhere, in terms of small nursing homes to bigger hospitals, etc. These would be primarily procedures like cholecystectomies, which is like removal of the gallbladder, appendectomies, which is removal of the appendix, and hysterectomies, removal of the uterus. So these are some procedures which are very common, which is done across the board everywhere. Okay, and then there will be and some procedures with respect to the stomach, which is called as gastric procedures, surgeries which would happen across the board. And then there will be some specialized surgeries which would happen, like especially in onco segments, for all these parts as such. So those would happen slightly maybe in tier 2 and bigger cities. And this is the segment where actually proportion of more minimally invasive would be there. Generally, minimally invasive itself has really gone up, but the proportion is definitely increasing in super, as they say, super specialties. And these start off right from the top. Neurosurgery, it can be open as well as done minimally invasive. Everything to do with the face also, like the ENT surgeries can also be done nowadays with minimally invasive. And you go down to head and neck, a big chunk where a lot of cancers and operations are done. That could also be done open and minimally invasive. And then you move down, all of the esophagus and stomach can also all be done either open or minimally invasive. And minimally invasive is more over here as we go down actually. Then you have all the operations around the abdomen, which is mostly actually now minimally invasive. I'll come in a minute to the scientific terms, which is that's very important. And then below the abdomen too, as we move down, peripherals, everywhere, it's all mostly minimally invasive assets. So these are the more common areas of surgery. And if you take specific surgeries as such, most of them which are happen minimally invasive abdomen are called as laparoscopic, because lapar is abdomen. So all are laparoscopic surgery in the abdomen. And then whatever minimally invasive or open surgeries which happen at the top is all thoracic surgeries. Okay. And of course, cardiac is part of thoracic surgery, either open or minimally invasive. And so these primarily would be, and then of course in the limbs, okay, there's a lot of surgeries in the peripherals from the hip down below. Even orthopedic, which is a super specialty, again like cardiology, is most of them are now minimally invasive. Okay, so they if a diagnosis is there, it is called scopy, right? So when you put an endoscope, which means you are putting a camera through your natural orifice of the mouth into the stomach to see how the condition is. That's an endoscope. So similarly, even an arthroscope is there for uh, 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 ortho procedures, which can be minimally viewed in the terms of invasion and then also the surgery as such. So these are various segments in terms of surgeries, and obviously, if the products used also could be either open ones, which is like the basic scalpels, knives, wound retractors, as they call, so that when you open, you have to keep them open until you do the job, to sutures, the first basic approximation material for tissues, sutures. So these are one set of products. And then you have products wherein which are uh, vision equipments like the endoscope or the laparoscope, which give you the whole vision even before you start operating and during the operation as such. And then there are all lot of equipment, devices which go in and do the operation through minimally access, uh, uh, you know, uh, uh, ports they are called as actually, wherein you get in through minimally access and then do the operation. So there are a lot of devices there, which go and sort of, let me put in a non-medical way because most of you are pharma, because you would be knowing anatomy and the device states, which do the part of transection, resection, and repairing, reconstruction. Removal of an organ is called an ectomy. If you're going to put a hole, it's called an otomy. So I'll come to the importance of these terms in a minute. But the point is, there's a whole gamut of surgical devices or surgical specialties, which one can enter one if you is interested. The other big chunk is capital, but I'm not touching capital equipments here because it may be requiring, especially maybe an engineering or a degree as such, and some definite engineering background for technical equipments like maybe the CT machines, MRIs, X-rays, the robotics themselves, cath labs, OT lights, and all of those big. So while as if you take the consumable part of it, all of which we discussed, in a minute before, the products which are used inside and to do the job, those are, you need a basic science background. And even if you are very good in your non-science background, but if you had a good tenure, couple of years in pharma, you've got the basics of disease states, you can still take on. As I told you, it's about learning. I'll then you can definitely who have come from completely non-medical background, but have been successful in medical device industry just because of their dedication to learn and move. A smaller portion, but definitely they are there. But what makes it easy is if a slight bit of a science background, and of course, pharma, most of them would be having it. This would be the broad division of, I would say, the surgical uh, well, devices as well as procedures. Unless there's a specific question or a specific thing which you want me to address in terms of.
No, nothing specific as such, but yes, we wanted to have the overview of the kind of surgeries which are happening, like you mentioned about the starting from the head neurosurgeries, then ENT surgeries, and then obviously the surgeries which are related to abdomen, maybe gastrointestinal surgeries, various products which are being used in these kind of surgery, maybe kidney, liver, all these organs. Like I think they have specific surgeries related to every part of the body, and obviously coming to the hip replacement, knee replacement, limb surgeries, orthopedic is again a big segment, and obviously the emergency trauma, all those accidents which happen, and I think all these are related to some of kind of surgeries, be it open surgeries, or nowadays like more and more surgeries are happening minimally invasive. And now I think as you mentioned that robotics is also getting into the picture in most of these surgeries, surgical procedure. More and more transplants are happening, for be it a cardiac transplant or a liver transplant or a kidney transplant. So there is, I think, this industry is pretty vast in itself, and I think for every part of body, every from a small to a big organ, there is a kind of lot of diseases which are there, a lot of trauma which is happening in this, and so there are a lot of surgeries and better various products which you mentioned. I think that was pretty comprehensive in terms of the implants which are there, in terms of equipments, consumable, various devices, starting from the smaller devices like scalpel, say, needles, maybe to the kind of sutures or wound extractor, retractor. All these things are there, and obviously the big implants, consumables, all are there, and obviously the capital equipment part of it. So I would now, I think we let's discuss some of the companies which are operating in this segment, because as you said, there are various segments, small different surgeries which are happening. So which are those companies which are operating in, and what are the opportunities available in this surgical device segment?
So thanks for that question. Before I just answer that question, Pankaj, and for the teams, there are a couple of questions
Yeah,
which I saw, which I wanted to, in terms of how important it is to understand procedures related to products and devices industries.
yeah,
I go a step back and sort of see when a pharma guy wants to move into device industry, he needs to look at why do I want to change my device? Why it might happen as I told, but then if it is going to be a planned, obviously it should be. That's my this one, because now the scope is very big. Okay, that is why there'll be more people, eligible people coming in. Years before it was not so, because whoever came they had to train and make them, and uh, we had the opportunity because there was nobody else available. So I need to also be carried in terms of, you know people coming in from those days had to. So there was a lot of leeway of time, but now you need to be much more prepared to enter into the device industry. So wherein you, for that question, and with the technology now available, which was not there before, some definite basic anatomy, okay, and basic procedures, scientific terms first, basic anatomy and basic scientific terms, surgical terms. If you go to Google or if you go to YouTube, actually, and sort of type on, basic surgical medical terms, there are a lot of beautiful videos which give you what the this explanation is, as they call as medical terms. Like ectomy means remove of an organ, otomy is making an access, and anastomosis is a joining of two or bowel organs, etc., etc., etc. Everything. So that is definitely needed. What I'm to say is, even that basic we could make those days, get in and then learn. Anybody, nobody can afford that now. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is the more important aspect in terms of, am I leaving to join a medical devices because I feel bored now in pharma.
Rama.
Fine enough. That's not bad. Or is it because I'm leaving? I heard that this pharma we make. Is that the reason you want to leave? That's also fine. Nothing wrong about it. The third would be, could be. I'm not saying it's. I want to be in thick of action. Rut, I want to move out of the rut, and I have heard that it is more very interesting and more interesting. Let me give it a shot. This is especially would be maybe in the range of 2 3 years, whereas the previous two maybe after 6 years, 7 years. 2 3 years you want to really move ahead fast. There are some people who want to move fast. There's nothing wrong about it, and then you find you have heard about the surround sound white medical devices. You want to move in, and there could be very few of the people who could be yeah ये 10 डॉक्टर 15 डॉक्टर और 5 6 केमिस्ट और रोज वेट करना है दौड़ना but I have heard that it is like it's easy in medical devices बस 4 surgeons को meet करो काम हो गया है and it sounds easier. That could be one sort of a thinking which definitely is wrong. Okay, because things are never easy anywhere actually. And this is very few. Why I'm saying this is each one of us has to find ourselves within ourselves. Why is it that I want to change? And once you have decided that, the second point is learning, learning intent coupled with some basic things about will I be any surgery is whether minimally invasive or open, even if it is minimally invasive also. There is going to be I'm going to enter into an OT, okay, and there is going to be all this stuff around the OT. There will be blood definitely, and there will be trauma, bit of trauma. Because it's going to be big. You will not be anywhere there. You'll ask you to go, but definitely there is going to be seeing of blood tissue, flesh and trauma. Will I be able to handle this? I should be able to handle this. I I'll need to. Those days we entered and then saw and then shock because there was no other way to see. And then nowadays even you see basic surgical procedure of cholecystectomy or basic OT. You just put up everything you can see on the YouTube. So you'll have a look at it. Looking itself makes you more connect. Okay, this is what happens. Not a okay. It sounds I can definitely handle this. You need to build that idea, and very rarely you might have some for pharma guys. If you are meeting a surgeon regularly and you have built some relationship, there's nothing wrong in yes. I'm planning to join a device industry. Following, if you tell me what's the protocol, I'll come to that in a minute. I'll just come and watch a case, and it could be a good friend surgeon of yours who could be a general surgeon or which help you in building further next level relationship in your pharma itself. Plus, also if you really want to move in, you'll just have a look at one procedure. You will know, okay, this is what OT is. This is what happens there. That could be one part. But even without that, also you could go to so much of is available. So this is one way to get yourself mentally, psychologically, and prepared for getting into the medical device industry. Okay, that's one part of it. Once you are inside the industry, like for example, one segment, if you have to grow, move career ahead in that, then it becomes more about using your skills to expand the market, all typical things which a sales person does in terms of as he moves up in terms of responsibility as a sales leader also. You need to be more in tune with the technology, in tune with the latest procedures happening, and what value adds other than just initially maybe as a medical device rep, you could be a value add would be providing what they ask for, right? But then you will have to move to a insight based role. If you have to move up in the device industry also in terms of how can value be added so that the surgeon or the hospital actually grows by my input, by my what I can suggest to them. This is a very key part to grow in device industry. Maybe for the 30%, this is more useful. The rest was people who want to enter. Like I have to be now a provider in such a way that I can give strategic insights to the surgeon or to the other stakeholders in the hospital, which will take the thinking out of the box than what they are doing. So it is like business to business. It could be a small nursing home or it could be a corporate hospital. becomes business to business sort of an insight. So it is just not about procedures and products at that point of time. It's about more than that. How they can actually increase the throughput or ROI on their hospital occupation. All of those things comes, which is linked to all procedure and products. So somebody was asking about how to grow in the industry in the devices. So either you could grow, like me, if you want to become a trainer, choose a specialty and get depth into it, and also sales training. Like that could be one. But many of them would like to be commercial leaders. If you are to be commercial leaders in the device industry after entering being 3-4 years, then you can develop these capabilities. But again, coming back to those 70%, the key things would be, why do I want to actually enter device industry? That comes from within, number one. Number two is, what is my program which I am going to make out myself for learning in once I enter? Okay, I shouldn't be thinking that 5-6 years I was in pharma. Do I have to go through this all again after entering? Like, because 10, if you are 6 years in pharma, but for the medical device industry, you will be the first starting off the first year, right? Your learnings from pharma will be there, which I initially told about discipline, etc., etc. But in terms of procedures, but you should be starting as, I'm a novice, let me learn. But this is definitely going to help me in my career. That's sort of a mindset. And third, of course, is like, since it's more hands-on, you will definitely be more, you will get the satisfaction more in terms of building those key relationships. Always relationships matter in selling, but it gets slightly magnified in device selling, because the surgeons or they really look to you. So you have also that sort of a lift. Okay. Uh, 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 for example, let me be very candid. There used to be some instances wherein 3 or 4 medical reps, I am telling you about my device industry experience in the initial stages itself, maybe as a district manager or next to level, etc. You would get, normally you would meet them in the OT, outside the OT or etc., because you don't normally meet them in OPs. Sometimes they would ask us to come for some specific thing, and when you go there, all the reps are waiting, right? And the surgeon says, or the KOL says, you get in. Let's discuss. Let those guys wait. We'll have to finish. Because that would be basically with respect to some procedure or some product which is essential for his next case or so. What I'm saying to you is that value add is there for you, wherein you are sort of seen as cut above the rest than normal or general medical reps, etc. So that sort of a euphoria, you also see, we are human, right? It gets. I actually felt we were at that. I was there at that point of time once, right? Now, how these guys would be feeling that when they have been waiting for the meeting him for the customer for a long time, and here I come, and then he says, because guys wait, I have to talk to him because that's something important for my next case. It was like, on the one side it was, we are going in, but the other side was, see what value add I'm adding. He wants to meet me first, not because to have a chat, it's because something to do with his next procedure. So therein comes. So all these factors matter a lot. So for those freshers or maybe who want to make an entry into medical devices, just these three again to reiterate. Why? Learning intent, and then lage raho, basically. Right? Once at least you really, at times you'll have to sleep in the OT or care lab or whatever in terms of the action happening segment there until you really grasp the whole procedure and product, because it's a dynamic, right? It's not a surgeon, a doctor writing a prescription. An OT surgery is all about dynamics of the surgeon making a decision, the OT staff making a decision, the assistant surgeon making a decision. It's a group decision. Who is the prime mover? Is it a product which is being given, which is being always used, or is it a product which is being asked, which is always given? So those things of dynamics come in. You learn. More importantly, you will learn also watching the procedure. And there was one question about, you know, uh, uh, we find it difficult to enter this segment of medical device industry. I saw that this. I'm a
Yeah.
diabetic.
Yes. Yeah. From
So,
diabetes segment, how they
uh,
feel it difficult to enter into
yeah,
medical device.
yeah. Some questions I'm not seeing because I'll lose my flow. If you pick up, you tell me.
So
Pankaj.
we will take, what we can do is we can take the questions at the end.
Okay,
Yeah, we can do that.
good. So what next you want me to address before that?
I think there was one question on the dental implant side of it. I think if you can elaborate a bit more on the because I think there are some parts which we have left in the kind of segments which are there in surgical, like dental is
Okay,
there,
dental, yeah.
ophthalmology surgery is there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so those have disposables and dental implants also. It depends on which, as I told you, if somebody, this is my personal feeling. Okay, I don't have any what to say data point or in terms of see catheters, normal catheters, syringes, uh, to some extent, not all, sutures, dental implants, basic dental implants, right? If not super specialty. These group of products are more commoditized. Okay, if as a pharma rep, your strength was let how to put it, me too uh, drugs, but you are still able to do convince your customer and get business, uh, and you are not moving out because me too drugs. What's the big deal in selling them? That's not. Some people can have it, but you might be thinking, okay, me. It's actually difficult to sell me too drugs, but I have find a way how to do them. That's my strength. Then you can get into these segments like dental implants because it's all like very very distributor driven and not much of technical discussions or sales in the way we know about steps of sales going through convincing or may not be that much. But then if your strength is sort of more on this, you can take it up. If that's answered that question in terms of dental
Yeah,
segment.
more on probably the pricing, more on the stakeholder management,
Exactly.
more on the kind of bulk, big volume management. If you can manage the bigger business kind of stuff,
Yes.
the regular maybe like I can relate to it. Maybe the FMCG kind of selling. If so,
Yeah.
probably the kind of consultant or the doctor is not the only decision maker. Probably there are other people like technician, nursing staff, purchase managers. All these people are kind of more important in terms of the actual sales decision which are being made on these kind of products. Like syringes are there,
Correct.
needles are there, consumable like gloves, surgical gloves are there,
Correct.
masks are there. All these products are more of a
Infusion
generalized products.
catheters, urinary
Yeah,
catheters, Foley's
yeah,
catheters, all of these are consumables. The dental
right.
implants, though they don't fall into it, but still sort of individual because it's a volume business.
Yeah,
So many dental surgeons, you won't find much of, unless it is like a super specialty of orofacial surgery, very specific implant, which will be less, a very small segment. But general segment, even outside of corporate or volume, it still all runs on volume. I
right.
maybe it addressed that question, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
And that,
Some other
yeah.
questions at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, and there is one more question in the chat, people who are here on Zoom. I think let's take in between that because that is related to what we have discussed.
Yeah.
So Ajay is asking about the specialties like research-based pharma, oncology, nephrology versus medical device selling. Okay, so it's one at one end there is a pharmaceutical general range of selling like antibiotic sales, like normal cardiology product, wherein and the other end there is a like oncology super specialty pharma sales and how it is different than the medical devices.
Okay. Broadly put, if you see, super specialty pharma, like for example, the cutting edge drugs which will make a life different with respect to oncology or nephrology, as was being put by the person, the question, selling those with respect to selling the devices. The key differentiator would be from a salesperson or sales leader or whichever position you are in, want to enter part of you. As I told you, in action, even with the research, my I may have to maybe get some feedback from the person. My reading of it is, even the most advanced research molecule coming out of oncology will have a set of group of customers, and you definitely are going to give a big value differences in oncology segment based on research. So there's going to be a lot of value add, and you are going to have a discussion. It's just not going to be run of the mill stuff like other normal drugs which are being prescribed. Yet, that's what I said. What you want to see do. Yet you are not seeing the drug going into the patient maybe, and the surgeon is not going to ask you other than what is the dosage, how to be given. That's where it ends. But maybe the value add comes in terms of awareness and all other aspects which are there in terms of research, because there will be a total therapy segment, paradigm shift in treatment, etc., where you will play a lot of role. But if you are a person who was looking for if you draw a parallel to device, he would be asking, tomorrow I have that case. You said about the new product which we are discussing in the surgery, right? I want to use that energy device which you are talking about, or that equipment which you, so bring it. I want you to show it to me and be in the surgery so that to tell me how to use it a couple of times. You see the difference. So there, it's slightly more pronounced. Your need to be there becomes critical for the customer, slightly more than a super specialty pharma product. I
Right.
think maybe I addressed it. If I
Yeah, absolutely. To put it, to add on to what Mr. CPL has said, is probably this is can be a midpoint between like a pharma, general pharma sales, then super specialty sale, and then devices. Okay, so it could be a transitioning role wherein more in like a super specialty segment, oncology, nephrology. You have more of like a patient touch. Okay, you are consulting to the patients as well. You are giving more support to the patients, but not only the surgeries or the procedure which are going to happen, but this could be like one more step which is kind of getting added to like patient counseling and all those support system which is there, creating awareness around the oncology or nephrology kind of diseases, giving more kind of support to the for the treatment that is there. So you work more closely with your customer, that is true. But probably the medical devices is probably the next step in terms of the relationship which you kind of enjoy with your customer, the kind of closeness which you have in terms of your day-to-day working could be a couple of notch higher than the super specialty segment. That's what I have observed in medical devices, because when I worked in pharmaceutical specialty segment, obviously doctor, I used to have better relationships or more consultative selling as compared to general pharma sales when I used to sell the general products. But yes, when I am in devices, yes, doctor is calling you even on Sundays. Doctors are calling you and asking, can you come there maybe on Monday or Tuesday, and I want to discuss this thing with you. I need half an hour of your time. I need to sit with you for 1 hour. This is the kind of plan which we want to make. This is how I want you to kind of conduct training program for me and my staff, or how we can take this program forward. So all these things kind of happen in medical devices, which is probably not there in super specialty as well. So in every industry there is something more which can get added to what you are already doing. So I hope, Ajay, that answered your question. So that is it about the kind of segment. I think we have covered most of it, and obviously someone was asking about urology as well. We will take that in the end. There are various segments, guys, where we all of, because the human body is such that there are various organs, there are various body parts. So every body part can have a surgical scope of it. Okay, be it surgical devices or medical devices, every human body part is susceptible to any particular disease or trauma. Anything can happen to any body part. So yes, there is a treatment to most of the, because the science has advanced so much. that for most of the medical conditions, we have some kind of treatment or cure available. And obviously, when there is a treatment or cure available, we have these medical or surgical devices getting used. So rest assured, in no matter wherever you are in the kind of which segment you are dealing with in pharmaceutical sales, you have some or the other product related to medical or surgical devices, or be it equipments. So if we have all these segments, we will talk in detail in the subsequent questions as well on the various segment, which segment should be chosen to you, which segment should you select. But before that, let's CPL, let's discuss some of the companies which are operating in these various segments, various kind of products, and dealing. What are the opportunities available, so that pharma people, they probably have not heard about the names of those companies and in which segments they are dealing in, especially in surgical.
Okay, let me sort of go over it. Many companies are there which are multinational as well as Indian companies. Right from, if I lift out the companies as such, the companies like Johnson and Johnson, Medtronic, General Electric, Philips, Siemens, Shahjahan Medical Technologies, Opto Circuit, Healthium, Zimmer, Stryker, Olympus, Carl Stores, or many of them. Now, if you generally, you heard the companies, but if you generally sort of make a division, sort of, companies like GE, Philips, Siemens are more into pure uh, capital equipment companies. While as if you take Johnson and Johnson, Medtronic, Abbott, Boston Scientific, the other companies, they have both most predominantly actually consumables. And then you have companies like Zimmer, part of Johnson & Johnson has an orthopedic division, three or four companies which are there in the orthopedic. Then there are companies like Olympus, Stryker, Carl Stores, which have these endoscopes, arthroscopes, etc., which are for vision equipments. So these are the various companies which are in the space. Of course, capital equipment, as I told you before, it needs a different, slightly different background, and also in terms of selling, because you need to be ahead of the curve in terms of where these expansions are happening or turnkey projects, and then be at the right from the starting level itself. It's more of a B2B selling sort, so your skill sets needs to be slightly more tuned to that. While as most of the others, like these companies, and most of these companies, the other companies which I discussed, have an opportunities keep opening up in surgical field. The other companies which I listed about, like either multinationals or Indian companies. Anything to add to that? You want me to add to those in terms of what opportunities?
In terms of the opportunities, maybe like people start from a distributor sales rep as well, like there are off-roll positions, or what do you see, like
Okay,
on-roll
yes,
position?
before it used to be distributor reps, who had experience in the, like my experience where I had 2 years with the, but after that, maybe 10 years before itself, 10 to, yeah, because it's about people who bring in from their thinking point of view. Obviously, number one would be what they'll be looking is achievement drive in terms of how is this person going to. The second is, as I said, about the learning aspect of it. Third is, how is this person in terms of creating and expanding the market. Surgery compared to pharma, some segments is still not equal to pharma or big, right? There needs to be more training of the surgeons. There need to be more awareness of the surgeons. Let me be put this way: a typical question which would be asked is, which I, if to rate a person, if I were sort of wanting him to get into, okay, this person is good from pharma, and he has applied for this device industry in my segment, whichever device it is. One of the typical questions, and it's a consumable, would be, okay, let's say the market is growing at 10%, okay, but I want you to grow at 40%. So what are the things you would be doing? So this sort of opens your mind, right? Because the whole market is going at only 10%, but your product is good and you wanted to grow it at 40%. What would be the things you would be doing? Which is the one, two, three, for a lot of things. This just I'm asking about. I mean, example of you know uh, 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 what they could be looking at in terms of what you bring onto the bring onto the table, or you know a specific surgical equipment or a consumable, you know. But then if you're fresh from pharma, they won't be asking it. This could be only maybe for 30%, which I think I'll address separately. But there was one question which talked about. Yeah, you had something, Pankaj, to say in addition to.
No, I think that's it. Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is, uh, in terms of um, medical device to move in, uh, lot of yeah, okay. There was one question about, I find, there's difficulty for people to move into the device industry. There's a sort of a block when they say you don't have an OT or a surgical device experience. Okay, therein you need to actually really be articulate, and that comes from your internal conviction why you want to move and what preparation you have done. So you could actually be telling, because these companies, big companies, whether it's multinationals or Indian transnationals, big companies, they're always looking for people who can deliver. Okay, and if you can give them the confidence that if they take you and give you the basic training, you will be able to deliver, then they would definitely pick you. Okay, in which case, what should be the couple of things we should be then able to convince them? Number one, though I have not had an experience in selling surgical devices, one, two, three, four reasons. These are the things why I think I would be able to do. Why? Number one, what is a basic preparation you did? You can explain it to them. I am not inside be an OT, but I know how an OT functions, because you would have done that homework, right, which I told you, the technology available. So you need to convince them that I am now in a position where I want to move into devices. Oh, and they would ask definitely why. You can tell them because of the profile of the job. There's nothing wrong in it, right? I'm more with the customer in acting, and I think I'll be adding more value. And let me be upfront, I think I'll be making more money. Either of these things could be, or all together. There's nothing wrong in that. But what preparation I have done to that, you need to convince them. Okay, that particular segment which you would be knowing, which you are appearing. So in any case, you can have a basic. So if you ask me, I know what are the basic OT protocols inside, and you list them one, two, three, four. What's an aseptic area? What's the aseptic area? What you need to be doing inside the OT. You don't sell actually the inside the OT, but then you observe, you be of service, value-added service. Only the surgeon is going to ask some doubt, you're going to explain. And if it is going to be a common surgery, if we come one or two, three common surgeries which I mentioned before, a simple cholecystectomy or a simple appendectomy or a simple, depending on the segment which you want to enter, pick up, see the YouTube video and tell them use those terms, because these are all preparation, right? Like preparing for a call in your medical rep avatar, you will have to really put your mind into and prepare, because you are interested in getting. So then they would know, okay, if this guy or he or she is made such an effort without even getting into the OT, about knowing about a couple of procedures and knowing about a couple of, exactly, it's not the steps of product, at least the product names which are used, even if it is generic, like a suture or a stapler or a energy device, which means they have put some effort, learning. And then they would maybe go to some commercial questions which you can answer, market, regarding market expansion, or if it comes to pricing, you're going to handle a value to cost and all those stuff, which is holds good for pharma also. But this critical one, will break the gate. So any device company, once they are going to take you in, is going to give you a training. Only thing is nowadays with all the pressures of the circumstances, even before COVID, the learning curves have to be minimized. No organization can afford to give a longer learning curve. If you are to able to convince them by you already how you are prepared to get into a newer field, then they would know if this person, he or she has made this preparation. I think we can take, and then if you provide them a good training internally, they are good, which will come from only these two aspects. One, willing to learn what the preparation you did. The second is about your achievement, right? I think that's the crux.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have mentioned it pretty well, and you have explained it well for the audience. And I think majority of the people have encountered this kind of question only in their lives, that that's why they feel that it's very difficult for people from pharma to get an entry into medical devices. If they go in a surgical device company for an interview, they straight away reject them and say that buddy, you don't have an OT experience, so we are looking for a guy who is already having this kind of experience. So yes, first thing first, I think you mentioned that your reason to get into this industry should be very clear, or that should be very convincing. Because if you don't have the right reason in place for you, then you will not be able to convince others. First,
Correct,
you
correct.
should
Yes, you
know.
are right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right. Yeah,
Sorry.
that's it. And obviously when it comes to encountering objections such as kind of medical device experience or surgical experience, OT experience, obviously as CPL mentioned, that you need to have some basic preparation. Okay, in whatever segment you are trying, in whatever company you are going for an interview or sending your resume, have some basic preparation, learn about the kind of segments, procedures which are happening, what are kind of basic products which are getting used in those kind of surgery. So have some like learn about some of the medical terminology, like CPL mentioned about ectomy, otomy, and all stuff like that. And what are the basic products which are getting used and how they kind of act or how they help. Okay, so that will obviously, and if you have like a good friend in terms of the customers you are meeting, doctors or OT staff, and if you can get into the OT or if you can get into the lab, that would be an added advantage. I have seen some pharma reps when they come for an interview in many medical device companies, they, because of their relationships in pharma sales, they get an experience. At least they see the environment in the OT, they see the environment, how the kind of procedures which happen. Obviously your drugs are getting used in those procedures as a medical management. Okay, so it's not completely different that the surgery is different and your drugs are different. Okay, ultimately if you're selling antibiotics also, these antibiotics are prescribed maybe during the surgery or after surgery, so to prevent them from an infection. So you will be meeting those gastro surgeons, you will be meeting those cardio surgeons. So try to sneak into these OT rooms, or obviously with the permission. That will be a lot of helpful for you to actually prepare yourself into the next role. And obviously it will not only help you prepare to crack the interview, it will also give you an idea whether that surgical segment is for you or not. Okay, whether you
Exactly.
really enjoy it or not, you will get some idea, and then probably you can make a better career choice. Okay, for some people I have seen that when they get into medical device, then they start feeling that, oh, probably this is not the kind of job which I wanted to do. Probably then they switch back into pharmaceutical sales. So it's always good to have like some experience, maybe through
Correct.
YouTube videos, some maybe getting into the OT, learn about the procedure, get into that zone where you will actually would like to, where you actually have to be day in day out when you get into this industry. Okay, so it's always good to have some kind of experience, and obviously it will help you in the interviews as well. So that's pretty much it. And I think there are a few questions with regards to the segments, and I think you have discussed about the implants, you have discussed about consumable capital equipment. So some of the questions are related to like when people are moving from pharmaceutical sales to these segment. Okay, so which segment should they target, and what are the kind of basic preparation they need to have for each of these segments? Or is there like a capital equipment segment which they can completely ignore for now when they are moving from pharma to devices? Or what are the, if they at all, there are some basic equipments as well, not capital equipment, maybe some of the basic surgical equipment, not very high end, where they have some chances of getting into.
Okay, let me sort of put that which I discussed maybe in separate points.
Yeah.
If we'll keep capital separate, okay. Other than capital, if somebody has been only be selling Me Too drugs, Me Too antibiotics, vitamins, maybe slightly higher end, but then they are all Me Too drugs, and yet they want to get into medical devices. The first step could be maybe get into the sort of the catheters and slightly specialized medical disposables segment, which I was selling, like infusion pumps or catheters, slightly specialized syringes, etc. Looking at those companies like Becton Dickinson, or there are a lot of them of
Yeah.
those. Because you are primarily moving from a Me Too segment only to a, but then this slightly better. Then if you get there, then you get into theaters, or maybe you are able to get into those atmosphere, build up relations with other than just being GP, meeting GPs. Then you can, depending on your interest, get into, that's one part of it. The second is specialized. Let's say you are already into specialized onco sort of segments, your drug, specialty drugs. Then you will be sort of, knowing about the etiology, if not the surgical steps of the disease as such, and how these drugs act. And hence, you would definitely be knowing more about the specific disease and the specific part which affects and how it affects, etc. So it's more, then you can sort of think about entering into a specific segment. For example, let's say you have a couple of drugs which are very specific to treating cancers in colon and upper and lower GI, for example, and you are very thorough on all the anatomy and how these drugs act, and all the, then you can sort of think about getting into the device industry specific to maybe minimally invasive, or open for that matter, gas, like these segments which are there with J&J, with Medtronic, with Boston Scientific, all of these companies, and also the Indian companies like, good Indian companies like Merrill, SMT, Optocircuit, etc. So again, as I said, which segment you are in pharma and which interest you have and you have developed will also be a factor in which segment you want to get in. Let's say you are in a I think there are some companies which have specific ortho products, right? Which I'm telling you about pharma, like bone growth factors, etc. If you are from such specific backgrounds, you would already be meeting specialist orthopedics, and some of them orthopedic surgeons, and not only medical orthopedicians but also maybe surgeons. Then you could have a look at, can I get into orthopedic? But since you would have built that relationship with the specific ortho products, one or two videos you can see and request for one case, because it's more slightly more traumatic, whether you will be able to stand it, all the cutting bones with saws, drills, etc., and what they do in fixing of knees and joints. Then if you think, yes, I can, then you can get into that. So it depends on such factors, if that answers the question.
Right. Absolutely. And there are a lot of questions in the chat related to these segments only. Like people who are working in diabetes, what kind of options do they have? People who are working in oncology, what kind of options do they have? People who are in neuro, what kind of options do they have? People who are in cardiology, what kind of options do they have? So I think the questions are related to these only. On obviously, as CPL mentioned, if you have some kind of prior experience related to that segment, it would be easier for you to get into that segment in medical devices as well. If you're from diabetes, I think there are a few companies like continuous glucose monitoring systems are there, insulin pumps are there. So you can get into those kind of segment. And obviously, with regards to diabetes, cardiology is very closely associated with diabetes. So you can get into the cardiac segment as well, because you will be having some of the kind of customers related. So try to find out some of the commonalities between what you are doing today and what you are aspiring to do tomorrow. Okay. So if there are some common things, so try to find those common things. That will be easier for you, because ultimately, otherwise what happens is, if you do not choose the right segment, right company for you, then you will be facing more of rejections. Okay. And then you will start feeling that probably getting into medical or surgical devices is very much difficult. Okay, so now obviously as companies are also looking obviously you will be aspiring for big companies, big segments, but you need to find a right fit. Okay, whatever those segments or those companies are right fits, depending on your current experience, current skill set, you will be easily accepted into those kind of segments and companies. And if you don't have the right relevant skills right now today, try to build up on those few one or two things which you can work on right now, so that it is easier for you to get into that kind of segment.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yes, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, but rest assured that you will have a segment. Okay, no matter wherever you are working, if you are interested, okay, if you are interested and you are really keen on getting into medical devices, you will find a kind of segment related to what you are actually doing today. Okay, or maybe like very closely in close collaboration, like something here and there, but you will find something for yourself in this industry.
A lot of questions I think seems to be coming from specialty reps who
Yeah.
are handling diabetic portfolio in
Yeah.
pharma whom they want to get into in devices.
Yeah.
See, an additional way to look at it is, one is commonalities, other is to look at it as moving out of comfort zone. And in that, the diabetic portfolio people would be most, because most of them are asking those questions from diabetic portfolio. I have somehow thought that is, tell me one organ or one a part of the body which is affected by diabetes, but is not going to be deteriorating over a period of time, and where you need to aggressively address later on. No, everywhere, right? If diabetes sets in and if you don't manage well, okay, this is going to affect any and all. It could be somebody eyes, it could be somebody blood vessels, either if, in the brain or heart or kidney or liver or any of those. So in which case, if you are a diabetic drug, pharma specialist handling diabetes, you could choose, for example, neuro. And already, if you are using, if you are in the diabetic portfolio, generally selling maybe only uh, you know diabetic drugs for management of diabetes, in the sense, all the latest molecules which are there, SGL2 inhibitors, etc., but only those which are controlling diabetes. But then you want to move into device aspects, still you can get into, as I told you, with technology help, what happens if diabetes progresses and it leads to critical issues in brain, if you want to get into neuro, or cardiac, if you want to get into cardiac, then you will see lot of, at least some, you will not get to the, you will not get to deep down, because it will be definitely overwhelming. But at least, okay, if, for example, since I said first neuro, if diabetic is progresses unchecked in neuro after a drug therapy fails, what could be the results of the blood vessels in the brain, and what are some interventions that happen in the brain? Like it could be brain surgeries, or could be minimal intervention products which are there. If you go and you'll have a look at it, which in which case, when you go for an interview for a neuro company which is having these devices, you can link your diabetic experience and say about what background you went into and learned about how it diabetes plays in neurovascular disease, and how you can sort of make a difference, because you have done some homework around how what happens in surgeries in neuro for diabetic patients who are affected, whose blood vessels are affected in the brain. Like that, you can go in for a homework on cardio, kidney, liver, generally colon. So, which means you have, because you have a diabetic experience, you want to move into super specialty from a super specialty diabetic to medical devices. You choose a segment and make some homework around. And okay, then in which case, so you don't have an experience in selling medical devices. You have only selling diabetic drugs, which is common. Every other company has even the latest diabetic drug molecule. So we don't see a fit. If you give me a couple of minutes, can I elaborate what I have?
Yeah, yeah, please.
You will tell this. What I meant to say is you will tell the interviewer. Go ahead. So my experience in diabetes was selling these diabetic drugs. I had a large portfolio of neuro physicians, or a good chunk of neuro physicians, or a good chunk of cardiovascular specialists. And I did some homework before coming to this interview because I wanted to get into this space. And you tell about a couple of things which you read through. So that will make them a connect. Okay, he or she doesn't have an experience in selling, but they had done some work. How diabetes can be linked to deterioration of disease in the brain or in the heart or in the other parts, which segment which you want to choose. And then, okay, sounds like if we, as I told you before, if we get this, get in this person, you'll be able to train him. So I think maybe that sort of answers questions for especially the diabetic portfolio people who are a lot of, and it holds good for anybody too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And there is one more question on the chat. So, what are the chances if someone has experience in commercial trade, having more of a retailer and dealer dealing, and for him, how to get into medtech sales?
Good question. See, as I told you, there are these, uh, specialty buckets which I put. So if you are very good in your commercial capabilities of driving your business through distributors and volumes, yet that definitely provides value, but then it's trade based. Then there are even in the surgical equipment, there are specialty subsets where you can, like I initially mentioned before, which are more commoditized, or some of them like even slightly not slightly more sophisticated. For example, there are in J&J, in Medtronic, in Boston Scientific, and a couple of other companies also, wherein there are equipments which need to be uh, more dependent on selling into trade segment, wherein it's not about just convincing the customer who is going to use the surgeon. It's also about convincing the owner of the nursing home or the hospital. So if you can work a return of investment and show it to them how this is going to benefit them in terms of more revenue or lesser hospital stay for the patient, how it can be more fetching for them, they will buy it. So if that's one part. The other is there are other companies wherein these commodities products which are bulk sold, and it becomes the responsibility of the surgeon, especially the distributor, especially like catheters, you know, syringes, even specialized ones, and all of those disposables where everything runs on commercial aspects. If you're fine, you're good at it, you can take a call on that. Call on that.
Sorry, I was on mute. So absolutely, that's right. And there is one more interesting question from Ritesh. He is working in pharmaceutical sales, and he wants to know, with regards to pharma salesperson, are there any traits which really scores over the people who have started their career from medtech, like
Excellent
people who are
question.
working?
That's a good one. So have pharma salespersons any traits which really scores over the people who have started their career from medtech? Yes, I initially mentioned maybe a couple of them. The one big thing which I think from my personal experience, which I can tell, which holds good every thing for most all of us who have come from pharma is, uh, you know, medical device initially when the whole thing was growing is of more relationship oriented, right? Like you build relationship, then they would use. Okay. But then after some point of time, you should be able to ask some difficult questions to a customer, which will make him see insight into, okay, I should be, trying this product. That aspect, I think, definitely scores comes from a medical rep background. If you have, you don't totally depend only on your relationship to I'm telling on an average, not all medical device reps go on selling on relationship, but then slightly it tends to move over there. But then what happens is, the growth may not be then happening to an extent where it should be growing or what the company wants. Therein, definitely the trait of a medical rep, a good medical rep who can ask those, uh, I wouldn't say difficult questions, in terms, I would say insightful questions, which will sort of change the status quo of the doctor, which definitely many medical reps do, right? It's not about can you prescribe this drug, doctor? No, you do that. So if there's one factor I think which comes about, which can really be a trait which will help a medical rep in a good transition to a good device rep is asking those insightful, difficult questions to shift from status quo, which a typical medical rep who has not had a pharma career might find it difficult to ask. I can put it that way.
Absolutely. And to add to what CPL has mentioned, probably I personally like the way pharmaceutical sales rep plan the things out, like the customer calls, everything is planned. Okay, everything is systematic. Whereas in medical device, you do not know what are you going to do next for
That's a
most
very
of the
good point.
medical device reps. So
That's
with pharmaceutical sales rep, that is your advantage of going with a systematic approach. Okay, and keep that with you when you get into medical device sales as well, because that is the quality which is rarely seen in medical device sales rep. So if you have like planning, having a methodological approach in terms of approaching customer, what are you going to discuss, you have the call plans with you, what are you going to talk, what happens in medtech sales reps, they don't have any plan. Okay, they just go out, go in the AT, and then see what they kind of improvise. But if you have that kind of strength, like you are going with proper planning, proper utilizing the company resources, what are you going to talk, you are preparing your talk track. So all these preparation, going with a step by step approach, systematic thing, planning, and execution is also very much there in pharmaceutical sales. Most of the pharmaceutical sales rep, they execute what is being told by the company, the kind of strategy which is being followed at the ground level is much more in pharmaceutical sales. So keep all those things good, all those good things while you are getting in an entry into medical device sales. And I think if you mention those things in the interviews as well, I think that would be a wonderful thing in addition to what CPL has mentioned.
bang on.
Right. So I think that's. Let me take some questions, one or two questions from YouTube Live as well. So Madhav Jamalpure has asked that he has come into medical devices from pharma, and now I think he is selling glucometers, meeting endocrinologists and diabetologists. So how can he find opportunities in neurosurgeries or oncodiagnostic segments? So he's already in medical devices selling glucometers.
Okay, oncodiagnostics and uh,
Neurosurgery.
neurosurgery.
Yeah.
Okay, if you ask me, like, in terms of opportunities, definitely within those companies which I mentioned, there are portfolios which have neuro devices, Medtronic or Boston Scientific, a couple of other companies also. So you need to be on the, including J&J, you need to be on the lookout, for such openings to all the usual channels which we know. In terms of your preparation for it, which I slightly addressed before, like, from just about picking diabetes, whether the patient or the individual is diabetic or not. That's what the SMBG does, right? Managing glucose, how levels, and how to do it good. From the next level, how this impacts, various organs. And since you said you are interested in neuro and onco, right? Uh, as I told you, just get into make some basic preparation on worsening diabetic situations. What could be the issues in neuro where intervention would be needed, and it could be surgery or it could be minimally invasive. Just as a basic idea. Then when you apply for these companies, when they you would be able to tell them, as I told you, that I have had an experience in selling glucometers, managing how to keep glucose levels in check and have a good lifestyle, quality of life. Now I want to move into where there is damage of diabetes done for example, in neuro, and how I can be of value to surgeons so that they get better, because these patients are already or in a situation wherein diabetes has really done bad to their vessels. And I have had some reading on through various channels, resources, and this is what happened, right? And this is what is a procedure broadly done, right? Like how they would intervene. If you do not have to get specific into details, but you will get that when you sort of Google it or see it on YouTube. So then I would be interested. Like maybe, for example, since Pankaj was also in Boston Scientific, in this search you would find there's something like aneurysm coils or some drug delivery catheters into the brain, which aneurysms, etc., which all can be because of unmanaged hypertension with high diabetes, etc. And if an opening comes, you can link your diabetes diagnostic stage to even getting into there in terms of. So that's how you need to have a broad preparation. Same holds good for onco also as such. Um, if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's right. So obviously you have to relate it to wherever you're going. You need to find a way to relate, and you need to do some research. You need to do some preparation, and be on a lookout for the opportunities. And there is, let's take one last question. There is question around the price capping, NLEM sort of thing, on the capping of various like orthopedic implants, hip and knee replacement kind of stuff. Their government is trying to cap the pricing on the products which are mostly used in various medical devices segment also. So what do you think, how will it impact the industry or the kind of opportunities which are going to come in the future?
So it's a good thing which is happening. Why? Because see, what it will do is actually growth of the market. Okay, and already it is being seen. There will be more market appropriate products even from multinationals which are based out of India coming in. Number one, and then there would also be local, tie-ups actually would happening more between multinationals and some local companies to produce quite number of these devices in India, and there will be standalone Indian companies which will also be started manufacturing. All this is happening. So, which means that's a good question. Why? Because which means if you want to get into medical devices, now will be a right time, because devices will be starting getting either by collaboration manufacturing here, by international and national, and also standalone national companies. So there will be more. Actually, there will be more need for value addition of sales reps inside theaters or virtually also. That's another big portfolio which we are not covering, which I do normally in terms of virtual selling, which because of that will be 50-50 going onwards because of the new normal, etc. But the point is, definitely this is going to help in many patients who were requiring interventional products, but which was out of the reach with this whole mission as such, which is including it's a two aspects to it. One is make in India, other is price cap. So there is so see when price cap comes in most of the devices which are very very broadly used across patient population, but then because of not regulated price, it touches only some people. So that way it expands the usage, okay, of the products. The other is make in India, which means it could be either these such products or even specialty products, which will be collaboratively made in India, so that the overall cost structure comes down. But on the whole, this whole thing is good.
Yeah, absolutely rightly said by you. I think it is going to improve the access to the products and therapies for the patients, and obviously it's gonna expand the market, because it will be in the reach of more and more people So it will be obviously with Make in India, and government is trying to focus on these things. And a lot of like multinational players are also setting up their R&D plants. They are trying to collaborate, as CPL mentioned, with the local players, or they are kind of trying to get their local manufacturing for some of the products to kind of better cater to the market needs of India and other Asian countries. So that is there, and it is, trust me, it is, there is no negative impact which we have seen in any of the industries wherever there is a price cap. And eventually we have seen the market opening up, and a lot of opportunities are coming after the price cap as well. So don't worry about these things. So that is it.
So even when sorry, Pankaj, when the price cap is there, 6, 7 companies will be in the same price range. Then who is going to add value? Still, so that's why our role, as device salespersons, will always be impactful.
Yeah. And with regards to this price capping, is there any salary cap as well? Whenever there is a price cap which comes in any of the segment, there is a question from Ajay only. He wants to ask, whenever there is a price cap, is there a salary cap as well for sales reps?
Very good question on that. I wouldn't say salary cap as such. Obviously, see, when the price caps comes, there is a restructuring around all of the costs, and one of the definite costs would be the sales force. So maybe uh, one would feel higher incentives will come to maybe what to say, correct now, as they say, share market correction, no. So there will be an incentive correction for medical device industries, and increment corrections, etc. But it will hold good. Why? Because you will be earning totally more. Why? Because your market has expanded. So you will not be looking at getting more from a small but getting more from more. So then it will get rationalized. But then you will definitely, I don't think there'll be salary caps as such. Are there any salary caps in medical, pharma? No, I don't think so. Cap is there as such. What definitely a person performing well is will always will get better than somebody who is not performing, right? That will hold good always. Only thing is the difference would be definitely always will be there, but the absolute amounts which were slightly maybe exaggerated for some people would be corrected.
Right, absolutely. And we have not seen any salary caps in
Yes.
any of the industries
No, no.
wherever there is a price cap happened. Okay, so rest assured, because ultimately, as APL mentioned, the market is going to expand. Okay, so whenever obviously government is also going to price cap those products where they see a lot of procedures, lot of uses, lot of volume of those products are there. So obviously, I know it is going to further expand the market. And obviously, if you we have seen like a lot of products wherever there has been price cap, in after price cap, maybe in a couple of years or 3 years, the market has expanded multifold, maybe by 50% in next 2-3 years. That is the kind of growth we see in the market. And all of the companies which are operating in the market, they all of them grow because the market is growing. But yes, then it comes to the sales rep and the company, how they cope up obviously. But how do you add value when the price is same? Okay, then you can't fight on price. The ultimately thing is the product quality, and obviously you as a sales rep, how do you add value to your customer? That is the only thing which is going to make the difference. So with that being said, I thank all of you for joining in, and special thanks to CPL. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here
you.
for last 1 hour and almost 45 minutes,
Thanks a lot.
and answering all the question. I think it was a really insightful session on how people can actually get into this industry from pharmaceutical sales, or people who are there in other kind of selling. I think thank you so much for taking time out and being here and interacting with all the participants. It was a great learning session for me as well.
It's a pleasure. Thanks very much. Thank you
Yeah.
all. Thanks.
And with that, I thank all the participants, people who are, I can still see almost 90 odd people who were there on YouTube live. So I thank all of you for joining in. And next Sunday as well, we will be here on this Sunday live show on some different topic on medical device sales. So I thank all of you, all the participants on YouTube live as well as Zoom. Thank you so
Thanks
much,
everybody.
and
Thanks.
have a
Thanks.
good night. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye bye.